It is 1 o'clock. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica. First Titans injury report of the week came out on Wednesday. Nate Davis, Bud Dupree, and David Long among the players that did not participate. Jeffrey Simmons, Harold Landry, and Rashaan Evans were among the limited participants. The team back on the practice field as we speak at St. Thomas Sports Park with a new injury report coming out in a couple of hours. College basketball, Vanderbilt was outscored 25-15 in the second half, a 48-37 loss to VCU, shooting just over 22% from the floor. It's the first loss of the season for the Commodores. They'll look to bounce back Saturday at home against Winthrop. And a big win for the Lipscomb Bisons on the road at Dayton, 78-59. They improved to 4-1. Hassan Asadullah led the way with 21 points, was 9 of 13 from the floor. It's a Super Bowl 51 rematch in Mercedes-Benz Stadium tonight. The Patriots, having won 4 in a row, face off with the 4-5 Atlanta Falcons. Kickoff at 7:20. Westwood One coverage right here on The Zone. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Let's do this, Blaine and Mickey, on a Thursday afternoon. How in the world are you out there? You having a good day? Hopefully you're having a fantastic day. We got a big show planned. Sean Salisbury is going to join us at 1:20. We'll get the latest on what's going on with the Houston Texans. That's an interesting team, the Houston Texans. Titans need to take care of business on Sunday, so I look forward to catching up with longtime NFL QB Sean Salisbury. We'll talk to him. Doug Mathews at 2:20 for all the latest from the University of Tennessee as they get ready to take on South Alabama. The Fighting Jaguars coming from South Alabama to Knoxville. It's not a matchup. I think they've only played each other one other time ever. So doesn't look like South Al is going to have Bentley back. So the backup quarterback's played quite a bit and has been a starter in the past, but certainly they would like their chances much better with Jake Bentley. But anyway, Vols just need to take care of business on Saturday. We'll talk about all that coming up with Doug Mathews. Probably the biggest story that's going on out there today. Lucas, I know you got this audio. Diana Rossini was on Get Up. None of us are doctors. Blaine's the closest thing we have to a doctor. He can watch film and tell you amazing things by watching people walk or run or jog or do anything. The rest of us just kind of have to depend on, our other things. Blaine has these amazing instincts that the rest of us don't have. But Diana Rossini on Get Up, who's broken some stories about the Titans before. If you missed this earlier, I know Buck and Lucas played this and talked about it, but this is Diana Rossini on Get Up, and it starts kind of one way talking about respect for the Titans, and then she just drops some news about Derrick Henry. Check this out earlier today.
Titans fans come up to me all the time when I'm in Nashville. They say, you guys have no respect for us. You guys don't care about us. You don't even consider us. And you look at the percentages there of us, picking Kansas City to win the AFC. I kind of feel that. I hear what they're saying. What does this team have to do for everyone to believe that they are the best team in the AFC? They are the only team that has beat 4 teams with winning records this season. They just got through this gauntlet. Okay, no Derrick Henry. They've been able to figure it out. I was just in Nashville talking to some people on the team, talking to some people connected to the organization, trying to get a sense. What's up with Derrick Henry? Is he coming back? There is optimism that he will be back early January, right? So just think about
early January,
that is
a possibility.
Perfect timing for this team for the playoffs to begin. So do not count the Tennessee Titans out if you're not impressed with
that. Is sneaky big news. Early January, him coming back could make all the difference.
There's a feeling
in this
if all goes well, if all goes well, and they don't like to do timelines there in Nashville, but
got that vibranium.
You know, Derrick Henry's going to do what he needs to do to get back out there.
So Derrick Henry, and now she ends at the end, Derrick Henry's going to do whatever he can to get back out there. I don't doubt that. Derrick Henry's workouts and the videos that we see of him are superhuman. The guy's been unbelievably durable, but then he does have a weight-bearing issue, a weight-bearing bone, a load-bearing issue. But, Lucas, the interesting thing about this, and the Hitman should be along here in a minute, the interesting thing about this with Derrick Henry is you have Adam Schefter, who has basically died on the hill of he is not coming back. He's not coming back. He's the one guy who's reporting that. Others had said there's optimism. I spoke to a physician friend of mine who was an Andrews fellow with James Andrews, and he said it's absolutely possible with this injury. He said, and I'm not saying Derrick Henry will come back, but he said it's absolutely possible with this Jones fracture injury that he could come back and play. Said not anytime soon, But given the right amount of weeks and proper rest, rehab, all those things, he said, it's not out of the question that a guy has that when Derrick Henry does, which, by the way, was October 31st, and then he comes back and plays again.
And it's his colleague, right? Diana Rossini, Adam Schefter's colleague, basically totally contradicting it on a popular morning show. And Adam Schefter's probably going to get on Monday Night Football again next week. And if the Titans come up, going to talk about moving forward without Derrick Henry gone for the season. That's the way he's contextualized it every time he talks about the Titans. It's just odd. Because what person have you talked to or heard from, whether it's someone from a physician's perspective or an orthopedic surgeon or anything, that has said definitively, oh, he's not coming back? Like an ACL tear where, no, that's a 12-month rehab.
Sure.
You haven't heard that from anybody. So it makes it so odd now. And then you've got a colleague of his basically contradicting his reports on Get Up.
And that's an interesting word because they have a lot of people that report on the NFL. It's a big network. But you do have one reporter who is directly contradicting your number one NFL guy in Schefter. And she didn't mention his name. It's not like she went at him and everything, but she gave the news that she was given. And I'm sure that's coming from, where's she going to get that besides inside the building over here?
Well, we were talking about it. She said they don't like timelines in Nashville. So you know
you know what she's getting.
She knows what she's talking about.
She knows what she's talking about. She covered the team. She's broken stories about the Titans before. So this is the look, you don't have to be a pro athlete. If you've ever had surgery or you had a procedure or you had anything. I had a tooth that shattered one time. And so I went to my dentist, and he's like, okay, you'll just go and get an implant. Well, I went to get the implant, and the guy said, this shattered. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to freak anybody out. This tooth shattered so deep in your skull, I can't do an implant. We're going to have to do a bone graft first. Oh, my gosh. So I have a Franken tooth in my head that's bolted into my skull that they had to create bone out of my plasma to put this tooth into. What I'm saying is this. One guy just said, go get the tooth implant. When I got to the tooth implant guy, he's like, this ain't exactly what we thought it was going to be. So until we get down a certain road with Derrick Henry, I would think, and maybe, hey, we're just spitballing here because this is all kind of happening live. This could be he's gotten some early reports, and maybe that's why there's optimism. Because in the beginning, and I know your significant other person is a med student, right?
Yeah.
And so anybody would tell you, right after a surgery, because I laughed about this today. It happened. There was a report. They felt really good about it. It was a success. Nobody ever finishes the athlete surgery and goes, we completely botched this. He'll probably never walk again, correctly or whatever. It's always a success. It went great. But at a certain point, no matter what the injury is, there's some follow-up. There's the first follow-up and then the second and subsequent ones. And then there's physical therapy. And if I know Derrick Henry, whatever he can do, he's doing right now. Maybe this optimism is because nobody's texted me. I haven't talked to anybody. I haven't talked to Diana Rossini. Maybe this optimism on her part is because of how some follow-up and how some things have gone very early in this process. Because, again, what was it? It was Halloween, right? The 31st against Indy when he did it. So that
coming up on 3 weeks here.
Yeah.
On Sunday, it'll be 3 weeks.
On Sunday, it'll be 3 weeks.
And he's back in the building. Vrabel said on his show here on The Zone on Monday. He's walking around. He's doing his rehab. They're seeing him in the building.
I had this discussion with Blaine once, and we did this on the air, and we were talking about Ryan Suckup, and I said, if only they could have waited a couple more weeks, it felt like he could have been right. And he said, this isn't a league where the train never stops running. They don't just wait on anybody. So for Derrick Henry, they brought in a couple of other guys, and they're going to, between three people, try to do what one person, the King, did, between Foreman and between All Day and between McNichols, maybe playing a little bit more than his role. So three guys are going to do the best imitation they can of one guy. But if he comes back and he can play and he passes whatever test to show his movement, to show his range of motion, to show all that stuff, he's going to play at some point. And so, if you get him – Diana Rossini, what was the quote? There's optimism. Derrick Henry will be back in early January. Well, the 31st of December, what, Lucas, would be November, December. That'd be 2 months. That'd be 8 weeks. There's 2 more weeks. There's a game the 2nd of January. There's a game the 9th of January. Let's say you do get the first round bye. So then, what are you talking about then? 16th or so of January?
It's Miami, January 2nd. Houston,
Yeah.
January 9th.
I would think if you're the Titans, just because the situation you're in your division, I mean, you have to basically go off a cliff at this point to not win the South. Like the most horrible things in the world would have to happen because of the pad that you have over the Colts, even a playoff berth. But if you can continue to play like you're playing and you get the number 1 seed, you wouldn't play until the first round of the playoffs would be the weekend of the 16th, 17th.
It'd be like the 23rd, 24th.
At that point, you would be almost 3 full months out from that injury on Derrick Henry. For whatever that would amount to. You'd be almost 3 full
Be about
months.
12 weeks.
So, I mean, what he does in the regular season at this point, nobody cares about. I mean, you can hold on to your end of the rope at this point, get into the playoffs, do what you need to do. But for Derrick Henry, if they could get him back for the postseason, maybe that's more what she's talking about, and that's the goal that everybody's talking about, early January. That means back doing some kind of some capacity of practice with the idea that he would play in the postseason. Because, I mean, if you look at any kind of Vegas, anybody making playoff odds right now, you're looking at a team that's essentially 100%, 99% chance of making the playoffs. Just, again, based on the pad that they have over other teams. Now, they got to win games. They got to do that starting Sunday, for that matter. They've got to beat the Texans and continue to take care of their business. But, again, the news from Diana Rossini on Get Up this morning, and this is the quote, "There's optimism. Derrick Henry will be back in early January." Again, the Titans play Miami on January 2nd. They play the Texans on January 9th. He was hurt on Halloween, October 31st. Titans prepping for the 1-8 Texans. We need to take our first time out of the show. We do that. When we come back, Sean Salisbury said to join us. What's going on with the Texans? Right? 1-8. They won the first game. They've lost the next 8. Tyrod Taylor is back at quarterback. Lost a wild one to the Dolphins last week. We'll get all the latest from H-Town next from the former NFL quarterback and now current radio host Sean Salisbury will join us next right here on Blaine and Mickey. Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone. Let's talk to this guy, Sean Salisbury. We've had him on before. Always love catching up with him, doing radio down in Houston. Longtime NFL quarterback. He's at Sean Unfiltered on Twitter. He is totally unfiltered. Sean, how in the world are you doing, man? Thanks for jumping on with us.
Doing great. Good to be on with you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sean, for coming on, man.
Yes, sir. Let's start with this. And I wonder, because you're down there, Sean, you got your pulse on the team, It seems like with young teams or teams that are struggling, there's always something that gets sold. Like there's a young quarterback, or there's this defensive nucleus, or there's a whatever. What is being sold to the Texans fans to give them any reason for hope or optimism in the future?
Assets coming down the pike on a team that's going to be picking probably first or second when the season's done this year in the 2022 draft, and 3 first-rounders or more, depending on the bidding war for Watson, plus a couple of 2s and a player or a 3 or a 4 somewhere in there. So a whole bunch of assets, and hope that Nick Caserio from New England can bring some Bill Belichick-type magic to it. But even that, people, as much as I like Nick Caserio, but the fans still wonder because – they don't give a guy a chance before he deserves a chance. They want to, because Bill O'Brien was with New England and was here, they kind of affiliate anything, and Jack Easterby, anything that comes from New England, they don't trust. The fans don't. They just don't. And it's unfair to Nick Caserio because he's had 20 years right by Bill Belichick. So the only hope they got, honestly, for instance, I did my show for 4 hours this morning. You want to know how often we talked about the Texans? Not 20 much. Seconds.
Okay.
Not 20 seconds.
Seconds,
Oh, no.
Come on.
Not 20. Not 20. They didn't. Their name didn't come up.
Oh.
We talked Justin Verlander and Carlos Correa for 4 hours.
Oh.
And it was nobody said, well, are we going to talk Texans? Matter of fact, when you bring up the Texans, they are like, nobody cares. The buzz. Now, you got fans that may not call in or listen. You still have fans that are football fans, but the buzz in the city is 2022. You get rid of a couple players here and there, and Cobb's gone, and Whitney Merciless is gone, and Mark Ingram's gone, and they struggle. They can't generate points. The coach, and I like David Culley. He's a great human being, but he's making rookie coaching mistakes that rookie players make, and it's the perpetual loop that you could put on what they said in week 1 or week 2, because they won week 1, to now, and it's can't turn it over, can't have penalties. I have not prepared them well. Our coaching staff has not prepared them well enough, and that's been said every week. And so we got to do better. We feel like we could have won some games but didn't. We can't turn it over. Got to play smarter. I'm telling you, this week we've talked Texans. Today's Thursday. We've talked Texans probably 8 minutes, and that's 4 hours a day for 4 days. We didn't talk them at all last week with the Carlos Correa stuff. We didn't talk them at all during the World Series. There's no buzz. Now, behind the scenes, there may be somebody out there that wants to talk Texans that still wants to, wallow in self-pity because they feel bad for them. And whenever you start feeling sorry for a team, there's no worse feeling as a player to have people feel sorry for you. That's what it is. They feel like it's a minor league team here, and they don't trust the organization all the way down, and they're going to lose their best player here in the off season. So it is there is no buzz here. There's more buzz about the University of Houston football team.
My goodness, what an opening salvo from Sean Salisbury checking in at Sean.
It's true.
Oh.
Now, they'll show up.
Yeah.
Maybe Tyrod Taylor will play. The players want to win. You guys know that. I mean,
sure.
Players don't tank, and it's not like they're quitting, but as a fan base, I mean, when you look at a tailgate when they've had a home game that's normally the area that's normally packed and nowhere to go, that you kids can run around in there, and it's open space. It's not now. You'll get I'm sure that they'll try to fight it out and go against the best team in the league in Tennessee. But guys, I'm just telling you, like I said, we spent more time today as football talking about Mel Tucker from Michigan State's $100 million contract than we did the Texans. We didn't bring up 20 minutes of Texans talk today.
My goodness. Sean Salisbury joining us at Sean Unfiltered, Sports Talk 970 in Houston.
Well, Sean, let's go back to Cully. He was, on the staff there in Philly when I was there in Philly, and really good guy, as you mentioned, a guy with a lot of energy and always positive. Not sure that if he was a head coach or not, but Has his decision-making made you think, the continuous bad decision-making, make you think he's not even going to be a stopgap head coach, meaning that when they get this thing turned around, it'll be somebody else? Will he even survive after this season, do you think?
That's such a great question, because I asked the same thing of a guest we had on about a week, or Aaron Wilson, who the local reporter and stuff. I asked a question about that. Will he survive a year? And you are right, David, and he's a hell of a nice guy, right? And he's a really good assistant coach. He's that guy that Blaine, you know this, when you go from like, okay, hey, we just had 9 on 7. When you go 7 on 7 up next, he's the coach that beats the players to the drill, sprints and beats them there, right? That's David. Great enthusiasm, been in it 30 years. Everybody loves him. And, right, always positive. The problem is you can't keep selling positive when your team has nothing positive to go on, and it's the same thing. And people, you get to the point of liking him to, come on, man, come up and be transparent, just flat out say we suck and we're not very good. But he doesn't do that, and he always has a smile on his face. But, yeah, I asked the question, and I'm curious about it, because I said, what's going to happen if you're building for the future and you know that maybe he's not your future, he's a stopgap? Why wouldn't you make the change at the end of this year if you're looking with all the draft picks and let that coach work with those, build those guys and be in the same church pew in the same church, right? Well, what I was told is, well, they may have and I think Ian Rappaport had said this to me. He said that, well, they right now they believe he is going to be here longer than this year in the future. I said, so you're telling me longer than 2 years? He said, I have no reason to believe otherwise not, which is shocking, because if you're going to keep him past this year, you're telling me that we're going to roll into with some of these draft picks and rookies and a new quarterback or a new situation, and then you're going to stop down and turn it over to another guy. Like I said, I love David Culley, but he's not a head coach right now. And I agree with you, Blaine, that there's so many controllable mistakes, like when to go for it, when to use a timeout, those things that you can control. I'm not even talking about X's and O's and the teaching that goes on with all the coaching staff. And this is a coach staff that's got a lot of NFL experience on it. I'm talking about the stuff you can control, not the stuff that you can't. And it hadn't been done very well. So you're busy trying to teach guys to control what they can control, yet as a head coach, you're making the same rookie mistakes as Davis Mills has. So it's nothing personal. It's just a fact. But, Blaine, I don't know how he gets through it, but the Texans are on the cheap. The front office has not been trusted anyway, and they don't trust the ownership. So I think everybody thinks they're going to run it back with him and go through it and let him see if he can soften the blow again, and then maybe in 2023. But if they win a few games, maybe they keep him around. I don't think he's going to be let go at the end of this year, Blaine. I don't, and most people are just it feels like a guy that's just they've thrown him in there to stay motivated and try to be positive, but it's hard to envision him 4 years from now coaching the Texans. But people are sitting here saying, well, why'd they hire him in the first place if you weren't going to keep him? So, and you're trying to build a team that's not buildable right now. And it's just, and maybe he's the veteran who's been around to keep positive what really there's not a whole lot of positive to grab out of it.
Well, with Sean Salisbury, Unfiltered, there in Houston covering the Texans, hearing all that, it makes me think, okay, I watched him on tape last week before the bye, and I was wondering, I was like, man, this team still plays hard, and Taylor was coming back after the injury. He's still a little rusty, but he can play now. He can ball. Where do you rank this team as far as talent compared to most teams in the NFL?
Talent, I would say that Georgia might be able to stop them, but Georgia, the Bulldogs,
they are pretty
defense,
good.
and guys, I'll be honest, yeah, they are good. Blaine, you know all about those good defenses. They're that full-grown men playing on that defense in Athens. But in all seriousness, and guys, it is hard to win, and I don't ever make it personal. And I was a guy who tried to be the half-glass full guy through the first 3 or 4 weeks, and in the off season saying, let's give some of these 50 different players that have been brought to camp a chance that have had some success elsewhere, whether it's Philip Lindsay and let's see if they can put it together with a new coaching staff and Pep Hamilton and Lovey and what they're going to do. And sometimes you get right down to it. You can watch all the tape you want. And Blaine, I've always believed in when people say they play hard, that's your job. I believe you need to play. I don't care if you're one, and now it's harder to come to work, but you got to play hard and smart. And they don't make a lot of smart choices. And if 9 guys are playing well, 2 guys aren't. if one guy's in position in cover 2, the other safety may be out of position, and you still get plays over the top on a defense that loves to play soft zone, blitz once in a while, but is going to catch and tackle. The problem is they don't tackle well. They don't dominate the offensive line. Really, and in truth, I've gone through the tape on this every week. I watch the game a couple times whenever they play, and I'm thinking, okay, what do they do great?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. What do they do good? Nothing. What do they do average? Sometimes you'll get a play. Now, Brandon Cooks is a good player.
Yes.
He's a good football player. They've got some players. Don't misunderstand me. I mean, they can play. They'll get a couple pass rushers that can get after the quarterback, once in a while. I mean, they've got some pieces. The problem is, it's like when you have one of those puzzles on your desk and the kids are there and there's a 500-piece puzzle and you get to it and there's like, where are those other 9 pieces? Is it under the carpet? Did the dog eat one? You can't find them. So, and Tyrod Taylor is a pro. If he gets into rhythm, he'll play. So, yes, they play hard as they should, but they don't play very smart. So, as talent-wise, I'll put it to you this way. If they went and played Detroit in Detroit, I would pick Detroit to win. And if Detroit came to Houston, I'd take Houston. But I think because Tyrod Taylor can make a few plays and they've got a few game breakers that can rush that passer, but they don't do anything exceptional. Not the kicking game, not the special teams, not the game plan, and they don't protect the passer very well, and they turn it over, and there's so many self-inflicted wounds, and then you run into a good team, and it's sometimes like when they played Buffalo, it's in the last 3 weeks when they haven't been able to score the bye week, they didn't lose the bye week, they hung in there. It's borderline unwatchable football. Now, does that mean that Mike Vrabel's going to tell them it's unwatchable? No, he's going to say they're going to come in and they're going to get after it and they'll have some things. They can't play any worse than they have the last 3 weeks, so I would expect you're going to see a little better. I don't know how they keep up with you, and I don't know how they compete, but they'll fight it, and I hope they do, and maybe make it a game so it's watchable. But the talent-wise, probably if they're not the worst talent in the league, they ain't the third worst. That means they're the second worst. So, and they're going to be picking in the top 3 when all this is over. I'm trying to find a win, maybe the Jets in a week or two whenever they play them.
Well, they did beat the Titans. The Jets beat the Titans.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And they can play, and Flacco's going to start. Now they got some talent. So you know how it is. You get tired of being embarrassed, Blaine, and you rear that head, and all of a sudden something comes up. But they can't sustain 2 or 3 weeks in a row. But after being embarrassed in a bye week, they may come back fresh-legged, ready to go. And Tyrod won't play as bad as he did before the bye week. He'll play better. They needed him back because their offense and their plan has been absolutely brutal.
Oh, man. Wait, I have one more question for me, and that is, over the last decade, is this the worst team that they've had in the last decade?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and last year, guys, now, they were 4-12 with the best quarterback, the best statistical yards with Watson in the league, and they were still 4-12. And then they went out and thought, and they were historically bad against the run last year. And we thought and then running the ball, David Culley came and said, we're going to run it. That's going to be our staple. And with David Johnson and Lindsey and now Mark Ingram gone, that staple, when you're averaging less than 3 yards a carry and they just don't move piles. And like I said, it's not personal. It's just, I've tried to. After they beat Jacksonville, I said, maybe we're onto something here. Maybe they can win 4 or 5 games. And then it's just steadily gone downhill. Tyrod's injury at halftime, the first half against the Browns. And then they just don't make enough plays. If I was them, hell, I'd drop back, throw it 50 times, and try to get Brandon Cooks 28 targets and see if you could go high school run and shoot, or college, or back when Warren Moon was throwing to all those guys we had in Houston, Blaine, and see if you could rip it all over the lot. But they just don't. When you're game planning against them, there's not a whole lot that you're afraid that you say, oh, if we don't take that away, we're in trouble. If you take Cooks away and don't let him dominate and make Tyrod, develop some pressure on him, I'm not sure where the points come from. But yes, Blaine, I can't remember a time. Now, records may be different. That I've been in this city in Houston for 8 years. I can't remember a time when they've run a team out there from the top of the organization to the bottom I've been on. I'm talking good about them for the first month of the season. I can't remember a time when it's been almost make you throw up in your mouth watching professional football.
Well, we're on with Sean Salisbury, unfiltered.
Now your Tennessee guys are going to say, the Tennessee fans are saying, oh, we got an easy one.
No. You're scaring me, actually, because I feel like they're going to come out here and throw it around.
you guys are going to call me next week. Said, Sean, they scored 38. What the hell were you talking about?
Hey, we all know you can get beat at any day.
That's
in the
exactly
NFL.
that's exactly right. So you still got to gear up for, because pros, when you're embarrassed and backed into a corner, you'll at least get in a fist fight, and a couple turnovers, anything can happen. So there you go.
Sean, you mentioned a little bit about the impending trade that will happen at some point with Deshaun Watson. Is there anything new with the legal stuff? Is there anything new with any of that you guys know about?
No, and it's actually, with all, and there's an unfortunate another tragedy that's gone on in this city with the Astro World stuff that I'm sure you guys saw that has taken on a lot of the news and stuff, and one of the lawyers is actually representing some of the cases in that too. I'm not saying it was horrendous what happened at the concert, and so there's a lot of that in the news, and it's kind of, and when I say back burner, I mean back burner because it should be there because of the importance of what's going on currently with people losing lives, which has just been horrendous here for those that went to the concert and lost lives. But there has been nothing new on the Watson front. And I think leading up to the deadline, well, are they going to? Is it imminent? Are they somebody going to take the risk? Is it going to stay civil lawsuits? Will it be criminal? There's nothing new, and I think now it's just all right, what'll happen, subpoenas, and what's going to happen when if they go to court, will this go to trial? Are they going to settle? Will Watson approve a trade to a team since he still holds that card? And where's the criminal part of this situation going? And it's the same thing that we had heard in August and July and then you'll get a lawyer commenting once in a while, but right now it feels, I don't want, the calm's not the right word because it's such an unfortunate situation for everybody involved, but there is no new, hey man, there's a break-in at this person's not right, or they brought a new witness in or what have you. It's what you guys know is where it's at right now, and where it'll probably stay unless we hear something different for a while through the holidays. And then once January hits and the football talk and the playoffs start and you start talking about when you can start to make these moves, the legal talk and where they're going with that will kick in, and then the football talk will kick in, which is secondary compared to these women and what Deshaun and his side and both sides deserve to be heard and what they're going to go through.
All right, I have to ask you this just because you're on with us and you are a USC Trojan. Who do you want to get the USC job? Who should get that? Who do you want?
Me and Blaine Bishop.
Hey, you got a good DC.
Hey, man, I think you may be up for the Texans jobs, man. You got some competition there, man.
Yeah, I'll put Blaine on the side of defense and we'll be fine. I'll call the offense or something, and we'll hire some smart CEO to coach the team. You know what? I don't know. Here's what I want, guys, and I'm trying to. It's so frustrating to me watch them struggle, and I'm sure LSU's going through it. But to struggle and not be able to kind of put a fence around our about 100-mile radius and keep those guys that keep going to Bama and Clemson and Oregon, and you got to get back. And you guys know this guy. I want a guy who recruits well and has energy. I need a guy who knows the name, image, and likeness because, as you guys know, the game's changed. And they don't know anything about when Marcus Allen won the Heisman, these 18-year-old kids. They just don't. So we got to quit preaching history. Let them learn tradition and history when they get in the building and they're signed. Tell them that we're going to win on Saturdays. You can get them to a national title, be playing in the Final Four, name, image, and likeness. It should be the name, image, and likeness, the best one in the country with where they're located and that school in the history. But these kids, they're different. They're the recruiting, and they want different stuff. It's not like when I was getting recruited or Blaine, where you come in and talk Heisman trophies. They don't even know that USC won a national title in 2004 or 5. Who's Matt Leinart? Oh, that guy on TV. No, he won a Heisman trophy, and they won the national title. So I want the recruiting and energy of Dion. I'd like the presence of like a Dave Aranda. Pay the money you're going to pay to Mel Tucker for that guy, so we guarantee the guy comes. And Jimmy, well, you know what? You know what? Now, if Nick Saban's pissed because somebody's going to make as much money as him, just go in and offer Nick like $400 million, like Mike Trout, and make him the head coach at SC, and we'll win. You know what? I just want a guy. I don't care if it's a big name guy, but that's probably where they're going to go. But it's got to be an energy that matches the kids, and you better be a damn good recruiter, and you got to keep the kids in Southern California home. And if you lose those guys, it's like what's going on in Texas or Florida, guys. When they're leaving your state and are 10 miles from your campus and going to Alabama and Clemson and somewhere else, then you got a problem. So you better dominate the state. And, I wouldn't even like a guy like Eric Bieniemy, who's familiar and hasn't got his opportunity in the pros, EB to go there because he's a Southern California guy. But right now, if you said, Sean, give me one I love Dave Aranda, what he's done at Baylor. I do. I love his defense. I love his presence. But just as important as a head coach, and Blaine, you know this, I need the staff, great recruiters and a great staff, a mix of youth, young guys and older guys and veterans, because everybody wants to talk head coach. But I can damn well tell you, and Blaine knows this, that it's the guys, the assistants who are around the guys all the time. You got to have a great staff that's with that head coach. So whoever that head coach is, make sure it's a great staff, because you're only as good as the recruits and the coaches that coach with you. Give me that guy. But I need Deion Sanders type energy in Los Angeles, and we'll be okay.
Sean, that was fantastic stuff, man. I feel like we all need to take a breath here. People can follow you at Sean Unfiltered, and as we said, you always keep it that way. Sean, Salisbury Show, Sports Talk 790 in Houston, man. We love catching up with you. Thanks for the time.
I come on calm, and you guys got me all jacked up. A 1-8 football team, my Trojans. What can we talk good about, man? We can talk about you guys, and what a great team you guys got rolling right now. It's fun to watch. So I appreciate you. Thanks for having me on. Bish, I love you, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you, bro.
Sean Salisbury right there. We knew that'd be fun as soon as we answered the phone, and it was from start to finish. When we come back, is Ryan Tannehill an MVP candidate? There's a poll out there from ESPN that says that he is. What do you think? 615-737-1045. It's Blaine and Mickey. Mickey 1045 The Zone. We need to put this on the Blaine and Mickey Twitter because this is going to be, as long as no one separates himself in the MVP race, does it become sort of like the Heisman race where eventually somebody just says, if no one stands out, give it to the quarterback of the best team? Well, right now, I mean, arguably the best team in football, the Packers might have some say. The Cardinals might have some say because they beat the Titans, but Murray's been injured. Is the quarterback of the best team in the NFL Ryan Tannehill? A lot of people would say yes. A lot of power polls now, people are saying that. So ESPN basically did a poll of their NFL reporters and basically said vote on the MVP. So number one right now is Tom Brady. But it hasn't been I realized at one time he was piling up all kinds of stats, but the ride's gotten kind of bumpy for Tom Brady. Lamar Jackson is number two. Their ride has gotten kind of bumpy. I mean, they pulled one out of their butts against the Colts. Now, that was all him. They beat the Lions because they got 3 seconds past the shot clock to kick a field goal, which was the longest one in NFL history. Still, though, they're finding ways, but it's been bumpy for them. Dak Prescott of the Cowboys. Dak's been hurt. They got blown out by Denver. Doesn't mean when he's playing well that they're not playing great. Okay, that's 3. 4 is Kyler Murray, tied with Josh Allen. They got the 4th most votes. And then Matthew Stafford. Well, Matthew Stafford's had a bumpy road the last couple of weeks. So that's the top 6 according to these votes. Then has just missed the top list, Aaron Rodgers. He had COVID. He missed some time. Patrick Mahomes is next. Now, he could get hot and make all this a moot point if he becomes Mahomes again, if he does. But the next guy mentioned is Ryan Tannehill, and he's mentioned under stock up. Titans keep winning games. He's the quarterback of the team. Now he doesn't have Derrick Henry. I think the thing that hurts him the most, and we talked about this a little bit, is he just doesn't have gaudy stats. They're never going to throw it 40 times. They threw it 27 and ran it 29 last week, even with no Derrick Henry. I don't know if his stats could get to the point where guys who vote on this would say, yeah, Ryan Tannehill, of course. But he's top 10, and I looked at FanDuel. What are the odds at FanDuel? He's number 10 right now in the FanDuel odds, betting odds, Las Vegas. So he's at least.
Is he a top 10 quarterback?
Going into the season, I would have said anybody.
I'm talking about right now.
I certainly thought he was going into the season. I still think he is because they win games. His stats aren't that good, but he doesn't get an opportunity. But you're the quarterback of an 8-2 team. He's led them to comebacks. He's got 5 rushing touchdowns. He's got 12 passing touchdowns. Now, the thing that hurts him, too, normally he doesn't turn the ball over. And when they were turning the ball over in the preseason, people get saying this is nothing. And for the record, I remember you saying, no, that's a problem. They could carry this with them right into the season. Don't think this is just going to go away. Mm-hmm. And he's continued. They got bailed out last week.
Right, they did.
But he's continued to turn the ball over some. He had a fumble to start the season. I don't think he's had a fumble since then that he's lost. But he's got
his numbers aren't even better than last year. I know that's last year. Every season's a new season, but man, what's his numbers from last year?
Last year,
at this point in time.
Oh, at this point in time, I don't have it in front of me. Last year, he finished with over 3,800 with 33 touchdowns to 7 picks. He's already thrown more interceptions. He has 8 to this point,
year,
12 touchdowns, and he's a hair over 2,300 pass yards.
Different season. I think it's a product of being in the position, but I can say Tannehill, and I'm a fan of Tannehill's, is that he is efficient, and he does just enough to make sure that you win the game. He doesn't do anything to lose the game, and I still think he's more than a game manager. I feel like that. So I don't know about MVP race, though. I don't know if he's a top 10. You know, they're 8-2, so you're a product of a really good team.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, he's been the leader and hadn't done enough to mess it up. So I would say he's right outside of being part of the MVP. I would. I mean, if they were 8-2 and King Henry was still on the team, regardless if they rushed just like what they did, and just imagine King Henry was Foreman and AP combined in the yardage, I don't think Tannehill would be mentioned. I think it would still be the King.
If Derrick Henry, this year, the way it's shaping up, I would take this to the bank. If Derrick Henry was still healthy and they were winning and he rushed for 2,000, he was going to win the MVP this year because nobody seems to have separated them.
Well, I don't know if he was going to win it, but he definitely would have been in the conversation over Tannehill.
Yeah. Well,
that's what I do know. I'm not, hey, man, it's hard for me to say somebody shouldn't be part of the MVP. I mean, he's doing everything he needs to do. I think it's the style of the team in Vrabel and their identity. It's just not flashy. It just doesn't look, pretty like all the other quarterbacks. Where you can go to Mahomes, Lamar, Aaron, Russell, Murray. I mean, all those guys are kind of throwing around the yard, doing things on their own, and it's manufactured through their talent.
Yep.
I think Tannehill runs the offense what the coaches want, and then he lets his talent shine within the offense. And I think that kind of hurts him to a certain extent.
66.5 completion percentage right now. And Lucas went through some of these stats, but again, 23, 58 yards so far, 12 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. He has run for 5. He's 10th on FanDuel. Number 1 on FanDuel is Josh Allen. Number 2 is Tom Brady. Number 3 is Dak. If you said, go make your best bet right now, go make your best bet. Here's $1,000 of Lucas Panzica's college fund. I'd bet it on Dak because he's a quarterback of the Cowboys. If they can keep winning and he stays healthy, he's a quarterback of the Cowboys.
That's why I asked Jordan Dzani.
Right.
Because nobody's really talking about, but, I mean, he's doing a pretty good job. And he does it with style and numbers.
Yeah.
Here's the question. Here's the question. I love Lucas on this one, too. Before we go to break, just a yes or no. Would Tannehill be in this conversation if they would not have called the roughing the passer and he threw that pick? And that would have probably lost him the game.
I'd say yes.
I mean, he'd still be in the conversation.
1 interception, yeah. He'd have 9 interceptions instead of 8.
But they would have lost the game.
If they had lost the game, no.
Because they
If they had
scored a
lost the
touchdown
game,
late.
no.
See, he wouldn't be in the conversation on one. Now, granted, it didn't happen, but it did. And
It's because they're the 1 seed in the AFC.
Right. It's because they're the number 1 seed and they're 8-2, and he's the quarterback. So if Blaine Gabbert, Marcus Mariota, whoever you want to put there was there and they're 8-2, they would be in the conversation.
2 more rushing touchdowns, and he matches what he did last year on the ground.
I agree with you, Blaine. He plays within the system. He never steps out of the system. There are games that I watch and I think he could have run like 4 more times. He controls the offense.
Yeah.
Do you see him, and I know we got to go. Do you see him making many audibles or changing many things? And I know sometimes you hear like you can tell, anybody can hear he's changing the play.
Well, I think he does. I mean, real quick, I think he does, but not as much as he did last year.
Okay.
Not as much as he did last year.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. We'll put the question up on Blaine and Mickey Twitter. Should Ryan Tannehill be an MVP candidate? It'll be simple. We'll put yes or no. About to do that right now. Hour number 2 coming up at the show. Doug Mathews in about 20 minutes. We'll talk all things Tennessee with the coach. That's coming up.
It is 2:01. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica. The Titans back out on the practice field today at St. Thomas Sports Park. An injury report set to be coming out here in about an hour. An interesting note from this morning, ESPN reporter Diana Rossini went on Get Up and said she's hearing there's optimism that Derrick Henry could make his return in early January. Tennessee head coach Josh Heupel met with the media today for the final time this week ahead of Saturday's game against South Alabama, saying Tennessee running back Tyon Evans likely will not be able to go on Saturday, although he did say that it's not likely he is out for the season. College basketball, Vanderbilt was outscored 25-15 in the second half, losing 48-37 to VCU, shooting just over 22% from the floor, the first loss of the season, and a big win for Lipscomb on the road at Dayton, a 78-59 final as the Bisons improved to 4-1. A Super Bowl 51 rematch tonight in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. The Red Hot Patriots, having won 4 in a row, face off with the 4-5 Atlanta Falcons. Kickoff is at 7:20. The Westwood One coverage will be right here on 104.5 The Zone. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone. Happy Thursday to everybody. Whoa. Yeah. Titans and Texans. By the way, we need to do a better job of telling you if you've missed part of this, go back and listen to the podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. We probably don't do that enough. I need to do a better I need to do a better job of that. Here's the thing. I'm telling you, if you are just hearing the show, go back and listen to Sean Salisbury from the last hour talk about the situation with the Houston Texans.
And he made me nervous. No, you thought it was bad. He made me nervous. I feel like now they're going to come out with guns a-blazing.
Oh.
Because he lampooned them. The talented coach. Play calling.
He is doing
making. I'm like, man.
That he's doing a great job. He's a sports talk host on a good station in Houston, Sports Talk 790.
Big time.
And he said, I did not talk about the Texans today for 40 seconds. He did a 4-hour show. He said, in the time we've said hello to each other on your show, he said, we're talking about Correa, Justin Verlander. We're talking about everything. He said, we're not even talking about the Texans. He said, there's no trust to the front office. There's no trust. He likes David Culley, and I know you love Culley. He said he keeps making the same mistakes over and over again.
Well, I said that in the beginning. I don't know if he was a head coach. I mean, typically the guy that's running around is the voice at practice.
Right.
And is always positive is typically not your guy. And there's a reason why it took this long for him to get a job, the head job.
And he said, David Culley, and I watched your face when he said this, you played on a staff that David Culley coached on in Philadelphia, and he said, guys, here's who David Culley is.
He named it to a T.
You finish the 9-on-7 drill, and you go, let's get 7-on-7. We're going to field 2. And he said, Culley is the guy that beats everybody there running, and is cheering when you get there.
Yeah,
that's who David Culley is.
Yeah.
And everybody loves that guy, but is that, like you've said from the jump, is that guy necessarly the head coach?
Nah. But he deserved his opportunity. I just, man.
What a terrible opportunity.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have took this one. But I guess you can't pass it up. It's only 32 of them. So.
Yeah, you got to take it.
Yeah, but hey, the reason why I say he made me nervous is because I watched him and he said, yeah, they play hard, but they're not playing smart. Always somebody messes up each play. And if one player messes up on offense, defense, it can mess up everything. But you never know. Teams like that with Taylor, who can run around and ad-lib a little bit and make some plays, they got enough. It's not the talent level is not there with the Titans, but they have enough. So
he also then made you nervous because he said, but you know how it is, Blaine, when guys get embarrassed enough and backed into a corner enough, they will come out fighting. They're tired of being embarrassed.
Yeah, that's and it's funny because I've been on a horrible team. We were 2-14. You can probably tell me the year, Mickey, because I'll get it wrong. But, and that's what I'm talking about. You have to have pride in actually who you are as a player, and you're a representative of who you are on the field, regardless if you're winning or losing, if your team is very good or not. And I really pride myself in that. Some guys kind of lay it down, especially at the end of a season when you got like 2 games left, and you got to find a way to inspire yourself. You're getting paid to to play this game, and you're representing yourself, and you may other coaches are looking, let alone the coach coming in, who will be coming in, or where you may be going if you get released. So that was never part of my DNA. I just couldn't do it. That's when I started to all pissed off for greatness, because we were horrible. And how could you turn on the tape and you watch and you see some guys like, nah, that's not my job. Oh. My job is to cover and not to tackle that big running back that just ran around that corner. Mm-hmm. So you stay blocked or what have you. I can't do that. That pissed me off. It really did. That's kind of when I just start, chewing people out. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and say, hey man, if you don't want to play, then go somewhere else, bro. And some guys, they don't like hearing that.
Stay blocked.
Yeah, stay blocked.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I
couldn't get off that. But
really?
Okay. Or did you not want to get off that block? Yeah. It's funny. Sean said that. He said, they're playing hard, but then there's another layer to that you gotta play hard enough.
Right.
Like you gotta go past playing hard. You gotta play hard enough, and that way you eventually win games. I wouldn't take him. Hey, he said Cooks, he the real deal. I don't care where he's at. He's still running by people.
That's the guy that he said. So he said, if you're the Titans, and we literally talked about Brandon Cooks for a while yesterday. It's like, hey, man, just know where that guy is, because he can still run right back. He can still run right. He can wreck your game.
I like their running backs, too. Lindsey from Broncos, and as well as David Johnson from the Cardinals.
Burkhead.
They got some guys.
I
don't know how good their offensive line, but, every time I saw him squirt somewhere and get out, I'm like, oh, uh-oh.
So there's a secondary question that we brought up at the end of the last hour. There's an NFL poll that the ESPN reporters did, and they named MVP candidates, and inside of their top 10 guys getting votes, one of them was quarterback Ryan Tannehill, and we asked, the question is up at Blaine and Mickey Twitter, should Titans quarterback Ryan Tannehill be considered as an MVP candidate, yes or no? Cuzzo Mike is on the line.
Ooh.
Wants to weigh in on the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline. What's up, Cuzzo Mike?
What's up, fellas? What's up? Good show going on,
Appreciate you.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you. Yo, but I got a comment on the defense as far as I'm a little nervous for this Houston game, too. And the reason, y'all said it earlier, when your back is against the wall and you've been embarrassed, you got that chip on your shoulder, this is a divisional game. They want to show, like, hey, we might suck, but, we still in the NFL. You got to give us some respect for what we doing. And Vrabel said one word that had me a little shaky. Not shaky, but just had me thinking, like, I don't know. He said rest. We got to find a way to rest our players. This week, a divisional game, every week has been like a must-win game. So it's been tough. But the defense reminds me of y'all's defense, Blaine. High-power offenses will come against the Titans, and the defense, and y'all played so well. This defense has played so well that they have taken that high-power offense and have knocked them down a peg or two. They took the Bills coming in hot, Josh Allen, MVP candidate. What they gonna do against them? What they do that made Josh Allen look like a little boy? Same thing with Mahomes, So this defense, man, I feel like, they can stand up to whatever order, whatever's on the order, whatever the menu is, they can stand up to it. When they get my Tannehill comment, pretty much I look at him like we ain't gonna realize what we got until he's gone. Same thing with Derrick Henry. Almost like, Tannehill is still that quarterback that's like, oh, yeah, that guy. And so I don't think he's MVP candidate, but he's definitely a captain of his team. He definitely brings life to the game whenever the offense is sputtering. He'll go out there, he'll get an 8-yard run for a first down, put his shoulder into a linebacker, and he's our captain. But I don't think he's an MVP. And that's my comment. Much love, y'all.
Thank you, cuz. That's a great phone call.
Back it up.
Yeah, and you can actually be the glue that holds a team together. A great team, not necessarily be an MVP candidate. Although that may be an argument for why he would get some votes in the end, was the quarterback, the glue, not great stats, but the glue guy on a team that held it together if they continue to do so, even without Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say he's more. I'm real comfortable saying he's the MVP of the team now that Henry is gone because he's the glue. Because without him, I mean, I don't know where we would be, to be honest.
No.
But MVP of the league, it just doesn't. He doesn't look like that to me. Those guys do something special. Haven't seen anything special. I've seen him manage the offense, what the coaches want him to do, whether he wants to do it that way or not. He's done it. So you can say he's done everything for this team, but MVP, man, that's a stretch for me. In the whole league?
Yeah. I do want to see if they could get to the offense that was scoring 31 points a game again somehow. If they could approach that and get the number 1 seed, then at that point, and we're talking 17 games, and this is only played 10. That's 7 more games from now. Well, if they got to playing like they were playing on offense again last year without the King with Tannehill, at that point he'd probably start to collect some more votes.
Now you're talking Mick music right there.
Yeah.
Because if he does that, then I think everybody will look at him totally different as an MVP of the entire NFL.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny, the perception of that, him throwing around the yard, making plays, and now, by the way, doing it without Henry, that will make him then one of the top candidates for an MVP. Make music. Oh, I like that. Man, make music right there.
All right, hold on to that one. That's a good one.
Yeah,
also,
I'll forget.
I will forget for both of us. One other thing that's out there, we do have to mention this. Diana Rossini was on Get Up this morning. This was a quote from her. There's optimism. Derrick Henry will be back in early January. Didn't offer a whole lot, just from what she knows, who she's spoken to. She's broken some Titan stories before. So the idea of Derrick Henry, that's something we will get. We can play this audio again.
But what did your best friend say? Adam Schefter. What did Adam Schefter say, Lucas?
Out for the season.
And he can actually wiggle around that because he can say, January, the season's over. The regular season.
I meant 2021 calendar year.
Exactly. He can weasel out of that.
I mean, if he goes back to playoffs, that has nothing to do with me. All right, we'll get back into that. We can even replay that audio in the final segment. When we come back, we'll talk some Tennessee Vols with the coach, Doug Mathews. That's next on Blaine and Mickey.
Dougie Fresh.
Blaine and Mickey 104.5, The Zone. Always good catching up with the coach. Coach Doug Mathews jumping in studio with us. Now, Coach, how in the world are you doing? I'll say this. This football season has gone by in the blink of an eye. There's 2 games left in the regular season for about everybody. What are we doing, Coach? It's going too fast.
Well, I think it has to do, I'll just speak for myself, as you get a little older, everything goes by a little bit faster.
Why do I agree with that statement?
When you're coaching, if you're losing, they don't go by fast enough. And if you're winning, of course, they do go by fast. But it has gone by fast. You're right. And it's been a good season. Somebody will sit back after this year and kind of compare last year to this year and just think of all the huge crowds that we've seen in stadiums. And really, I haven't heard of anything where we've had any COVID problems from a fan standpoint. We've had a few, but not many on teams. There's probably been more in there have been more in the NFL than there has in college football, as a matter of fact. But, no, it's been a really good year, and the Southeastern Conference has had a really good year overall. We got 2 teams that have potential to get in the college football playoff. But just look at the teams. Look at the state of Mississippi now.
That Egg Bowl this year?
Last year you had 2 new coaches hired.
Right.
And now both of them are playing really well. They're in the top 25, and Ole Miss found a defense playing really well. Arkansas again, Tennessee looks like they're coming back a little bit now. So it's been a good year. It really has. Real good year.
The Vols had a nice start against Georgia, and we were talking about this when you came in. They actually led 10-7 after a quarter. They ultimately could not sustain it. And the takeaway was, and Blaine said this before the game, they always get them early. That offense, there's just no way. We had a Georgia reporter on, and he said they're already practicing against Tennessee. They've been doing it for a few weeks now to try to you can't simulate it. So it was a nice start for Tennessee. But, oh, my gosh, the biggest takeaway, this Georgia team, oh, my gosh.
Well, Georgia did what good teams do. It happens often in games like that where a team comes in. Blaine, I don't know if you ever played against a wishbone. You were a little bit later, but
I played against Army and Navy.
That's the way it used to be with wishbone teams. It would take teams when you played a wishbone team because you can't simulate it, and it's the same with this. No matter how fast you think you're going in practice, you don't realize how fast they go, and it's happened to everybody this year. But then good football teams get on the sideline. Okay, we know what we're doing now, and most of the adjustment, quite frankly, is hey, let's just line up and play. Player-based defense. And Georgia, I don't know if they played their base defense, but, boy, anytime they wanted to put a stop on there, they are so good on defense. I was mentioning on the Coach to Coach show we taped a little bit earlier today that the best team, defensive team, as I go back and look, in the Southeastern Conference, 40 years I've been associated with it, was, I think, Alabama's 1992 team. They won the national championship. Ooh. Great defense. Yeah. And it's hard to compare, but this Georgia defense, they are so good up front. They have so much depth. And the problem is it's difficult to run at them, and they got so much speed with their linebackers, you can't hardly run away from them. So it makes you throw the ball, and then they are so good at pass rush. We were talking before we went out there, mentioned to Blaine that they're the one team in this country that can rush only their 4 down line people and get there. They don't have to blitz. And when you can rush 4, they do such a good job of pattern reading back in the back, both zone and man, that they're a handful. They're going to be a handful to anybody that play it. Well, going into the game, they were giving up 5.5 points a game through 9 football games. And it's pretty tough in this day and time.
And people always want to talk about, their offense, they can't do this, and they can't do this. But their offense scores points. There's like they were 14th in the nation going into the game against Tennessee, and Tennessee was 15th.
They are the perfect example, and I think Kirby Smart, because of his experience and everything, their offense is compatible to their defense. They don't need an offense that's going to go out there and go no huddle. They can huddle up. And you're right, they've been scoring well over 30 points a game, and they're impressive. They really are. I don't see anybody right now beating them.
I have somebody can beat them, Coach. Themselves.
That's a good point.
Only Georgia can beat Georgia.
And they're going in the game just like the Tennessee game. Tennessee knew that Georgia doesn't make any turnovers. If they don't turn the ball over, you're going to have a hard time beating them.
Oh, my goodness. Coach Doug Mathews in studio hanging out with us, brought to you by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office. Designate before you celebrate. That's because fans don't let fans drive drunk. Brought to you by the Tennessee Highway Safety Office.
Well, Coach, yeah, Doug, you just said it. The game kind of went as you thought. I thought Tennessee would score one more touchdown. Maybe they would if they wouldn't have gone on forward on that fourth down. But, I like the aggressiveness of going there. But what did you think about the play? Rolling your quarterback to the left, always tough. I just didn't like the play call. Naturally, if it worked, everybody would have loved it. But I still just didn't like the play call. You're trying to get your quarterback outside, but it's to his left. He has to throw across his body. And if he can, maybe he can run. But, man, you had to know that this defense is really fast. That was going to be tough to do.
Well, I know as a defense coordinator, I wanted them to roll out away from whichever arm the guy had. But that's where that he threw. That's where they were lined up on the hash mark. They didn't have any choice. Not only is it a difficult throw across your body, most right-handed people run a little bit better to the right than they do the left, just like in basketball. You can drive a little bit. And so not only is it a little bit more difficult to throw the ball, it's also a little bit more difficult to run. But I think regardless, it was 4th and 4, maybe 4th and 5. Georgia defensively did not have to bring people. They could play really good, hard, tough man-to-man. And that's tough to pick up 4th down, 4 or 5 on anybody. But, I applaud Coach Heupel for doing it. I mean, he could have kept the game closer. He could have kicked a couple of field goals.
Yeah.
And, but he's trying to get his program set. I think his team and anybody that's watching his team that is thinking about becoming part of his team knows that they're gonna throw the ball around. They're gonna run the ball. They're gonna be high powered, and he's gonna go for it most of the time. And it's that's his style.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I like the aggressiveness. What do you think about Hooker's play? I thought he had to play nearly perfect. Naturally, he didn't. Nobody's going to ever play perfect, but he had to play really exceptional in this game, and he just came up a little short on that.
Well, there's 3 really good quarterbacks in this league. There's more than 3 good ones, but 3 really good ones. Bryce Young, down at Alabama. Certainly, I think the best in the league is exactly right. Matt Corral. I mean, he is the whole package there. And then I think you have to put Hooker right there with him. If you look at the QB rating, he's ahead of them. He, going into this game, was 21 touchdowns and only 2 or 3 interceptions. Not as talented, maybe, but the thing that he has done so very, very well, he's very decisive. When he decides to run, he runs. When he decides to throw, he throws. Didn't have a great passing game, but again, he was going up against the defense that made him get rid of the ball probably a little bit quicker. You're not going to play perfect every time, and he needed to have almost a perfect game for him to have a chance. But tell you what, he's really been a breath of fresh air up there. He's a very good player, good runner, and hopefully he'll come back next year. We'll see.
I don't know. I'd beg to differ. I think he's coming out, but that's just me. What was the turning point of the game? Where do you think? Where did Tennessee lose it early? Where they were up, they had the momentum, and then boom, all of a sudden you think, this game is going in a different direction.
I don't know if there was a turning point because you could see just the 2 teams. Georgia was so much better, and if Georgia played well, they were going to win the game. But I think that after that first, Tennessee had 150-some yards first quarter. They're up 10-7. But the one that really hurt was Georgia was up 17-10. And right before half, they had that long drive, picked up some key third downs, and went up 24-10. Once they got up 2 scores, going to be very difficult. And they were getting the ball after half.
Right.
So that was now, was it a turning point from the standpoint of would Tennessee have won if it hadn't happened? No. But going in 14 down, 2 scores down instead of 7 down, certainly affected, I think, both teams. But Tennessee wasn't going to win that ball game. They really weren't. If you look at it, the last touchdown happened when, they weren't backups in there for Georgia, but Georgia was playing a little looser. Milton came in and made some good throws, matter of fact. And Coach Tillman had a great ball game. I want to give him a lot of credit. Here's a guy I think everybody who follows Tennessee knows in his total career he'd caught less than 10 passes in his total career. and 200 yards in that ball game. He's a physical combat catcher, runs deep routes well, short routes well, and he's a really good run blocker, out there on the corner. So Tennessee played pretty well. They really did. I think they got better, and hopefully they can end up with 2 good wins here at the end and get to 7-5, and that would be, I think, a very successful season. Certainly will from my viewpoint.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Do you know much about South Alabama? No.
Yes, I do, for this simple reason. Kevin Steele.
All right.
Kevin Steele's son is the offensive line coach. I called Kevin. Their offense is going to be, if you think what Alabama did last year, that style of offense, what they did last year, 3 of the coaches on South Alabama staff, offensive coaches, were at Alabama last year. 2 of them were assistant. Major Applewhite's the offensive coordinator.
Okay.
So it's that style.
Major was almost the OC at Arkansas State, and then he was not. He went to South Alabama.
and so it's that style of offense. Their quarterback, the Bentley kid, who transferred from South Carolina, hurt his knee, so he's out. And actually, I forget the young man's last name, but he is Ozzie Newsome's grandson.
The other quarterback, Desmond Trotter.
That's Ozzie. I'm putting all this on Kevin Steele, so but Kevin's been down to see him a couple times down there. It's a team. Tennessee plays well. Yeah. They should win this ball game, but and I think they'll play well. They really haven't played poorly all year long. Really haven't.
They do have Coach Doug Mathews, our guest, a Tennessee highway safety office, making it happen. They have a really good receiver, a guy named Jalen Tolbert, who just got we got a Senior Bowl Hall of Famer in the room here in Blaine Bishop. He got an invitation to the Senior Bowl. He's had 2 really good back-to-back seasons. That's a guy you always have to know, who do we have to plan for? That would be that guy.
Kevin told me he didn't know their name, but he's watched them 3 or 4 times this year. Kevin told me they had 2 wide receivers. He thought one for sure would be an NFL guy, and the second one possibly could be. Running backs, kind of that level running back, offensive line. They're a good football team, 5-5, good football team that
in the Sun Belt, right?
And they've been beat up too. Of course, you get them at those teams at the end of the year playing a Southeastern Conference team. It should be a mismatch, but you don't ever know. I think they'll come in and certainly want to play well, but I think Tennessee will play well too.
What's the latest on health? It didn't look good today. I saw for Tyon Evans. It didn't sound like Josh Heupel sounded very optimistic he would practice tomorrow.
I don't know. I don't know really these last 2 ball games. I mean, they've played without him a good bit this year. Small and Wright will probably do most of it. Whitehead didn't play. I don't know if he's injured or what. I don't really ask them about injuries because they probably don't want to tell me anyway.
Yeah, right.
But they're pretty healthy. I mean, they got the offensive line. I think all of them are ready to go. They've had a couple of young guys there who played well. When Tennessee's 5 starters are in there in the offensive line, they're a good unit because they work well together. So I think they'll be really healthy. Tennessee has a lot to play for. This will get them bowl eligible. Vanderbilt coming next week after Thanksgiving. That's always a game that most Tennessee players look forward to. So they're sitting pretty good right now. I thought that. And matter of fact, I told Coach Heupel this a couple of different times. I said, "Now don't win any more than 6 games this year, because if you win more than 6, this crowd's going to want you to beat Georgia for the SEC East next year."
Sure,
they got a good chance of winning 7. That'll win them, but they're in good position and relatively healthy. They haven't had a lot of depth all year anyway, but they're relatively healthy on both sides of the ball. They got some weaknesses, but they're. The linebackers, or in particular, Banks is a very good player. The other 2 really should not be playing at that level. But, again, the 2 starters last year, I hear some Tennessee fans talk about how they weren't very good. Well, one of them starting at Alabama and the other was starting at Michigan State, and both those teams are in the top 5 in the college football playoff.
Come on now. Come on, y'all.
Don't be a
well, you know how it is. When they're ours, they're good, and when they're not ours, they're not very good anymore. But,
you're wearing the orange-colored glasses.
But Tennessee benefited a lot from transfers. See, they've had several transfers that have played very well. Hooker.
Shame the Mitchell kid couldn't have stayed healthy because maybe he could have helped the linebacker.
That's the one area.
Right.
They weren't very deep. Tennessee was not very deep at linebacker before those 2 left. And they got a couple of guys out there that are undersized. They play their butts off. But, you got a 230-pound running back and a 200-pounder try to tackle them. You can do that a few times, but when you have to do it the whole ball game, it gets a little bit tough in there. But again, they're playing about as well as those two guys are playing about as well as they can play.
As a coach, that's all you could ask.
Yeah,
we're on with our coach, Doug Mathews, here.
That's exactly right. That's all you can ask, and you sometimes forget that as a coach.
Sure.
And you also it takes a while when you have to admit, just like let me give you a great example. The last touchdown pass when the back came out of the backfield against Georgia, and the linebacker had to go out there and line up against him. If you ask a linebacker to go out and cover and Cook is a good receiver, man on man with no help, and he gets beat, it's not his fault. It's your fault for putting him in that position. If you're going to do that, you have to have a safety go help him, because everybody in that stadium knew who they were going to go to.
No doubt.
And it was a little up. Should he have done a better job? Yes. But, again, they put him in a bad position. And that's not being critical. That's just sometimes you are forced to do that.
Sure.
But when you do it, you know that if they go to that guy, we see it at every level. We see it in the pros. You get a linebacker out there against a good running back, they're probably going to get beat more often than not. And they're going to go with a takeoff route.
Sure.
They're going to see if you can cover.
Well, speaking of coaching, though, Coach, now these last two games, nothing to, talk about the opponents, but if you get up like you're supposed to do and do what you're supposed to do these last two games, will we get to see, I guess, some other players continue to develop and get some playing time at this point? How do coaches think about that?
Yeah. Remember that you had the 4 games that you can play in 4 games is still redshirt. So Tennessee has some of those players who can play. I would anticipate them playing. And one thing we talk about getting up and all that, this seems to me to be Josh Heupel's style. That he's not a rah guy. He's not over there jumping up and down rah. So his team, I think, plays pretty even. They haven't been way
he's
up.
a quarterback, so he has to stay even. That's in his day and age.
And he coaches like that. A couple of examples would be, look at South Carolina. All right, with the Beamer kid over there, he's just the opposite.
Right.
Which, by the way, I want to say, for them to be at 5 wins, South Carolina, that is a heck of a coaching job, because they are not that good, but they're at 5 wins.
Sure.
They've got an opportunity to get to a bowl game also. So there's been some good coaching in this league. I mean, maybe at the end of the year we'll talk a little bit more about it, but you just look around. I mentioned the 2 Mississippi schools. Arkansas has done an excellent job, and Kentucky, obviously.
Sure.
There's been some good coaching that's gone on in this league, and it's good to see.
Supposed to be the best. They're getting paid like the best.
Well, I was going to say, for 3, 4, 5, if you make 3, 4, 5 million. And by the way, did you see the Michigan State? I'm sure you did.
Yeah, the extension? What is that? How many years is that for?
I don't know. It's not finalized yet, but 9 or 10 years at $95 million.
It's 10 years for $9.5 million per year. And that guy didn't get a head coaching job until 2 years ago, Mel Tucker.
Yeah.
He's done a fabulous
God
job.
bless him. Amen.
Yeah, well, Nick Saban's get underpaid.
They made he is a perfect example, he and Michigan State, of how the transfer portal helped. They got that running back from Wake Forest.
Right.
He's got 1,500 yards rushing
Right.
now. They've got 8 or 10 transfer portal guys. And that's what's going to be the interesting thing to me going forward. Nobody really knows. That is such a new situation, the transfer portal, where you can transfer and come in. And I think there's one thing. I think it's Texas State, Mickey. I'm not sure.
They didn't recruit anybody. They
didn't sign a single high school player.
I think they gave him a 30-year extension, too, by the way.
It's Texas State. It's Texas State.
Every kid was a transfer. But that's what we're going to see now. We're going to see teams that change all of a sudden because they got those transfers coming in. And the new rule this year that was just put in place, you can sign your 25, up to your 25, and then you can sign one for every player you have that transfers up to 7. So theoretically, you could sign 32 players in this class. So you're going to see some teams kind of change overnight, and it's a different world. Yep. Throw name, image, likeness in there.
Yes, sir.
You're trying to figure all those things out. It's going to be a thrill a minute, as my old head coach at Tennessee.
It's always a thrill a minute when we get Coach Doug Mathews. Coach, thanks for the time as always. Catching football Saturday, Big Orange Sunday, and every here this same time on the Blaine and Mickey Show. When we come back, what did Diana Rossini say about Derrick Henry? We'll play you that audio next. Blaine and Mickey. NFL Week 11 is here. FanDuel Sportsbook wants you to get the most out of every play. That's why they're giving everybody who can hear the sound of my voice, and even if they can't, they're going to get a $10 risk-free bet every week. Thursday night is a great opportunity to give this thing a try. All you got to do is bet a same-game parlay bet with 3 legs or more. That's it. And if your bet doesn't win, FanDuel is going to pay you back up to $10. Here's what I like this week. I like the Seahawks over the Cardinals. I like the first half under. I like Seattle over rushing yards. Pete Carroll said they're going to start running it. Well, there's nothing like nailing a same-game parlay bet. So lock in one today on FanDuel Sportsbook. Get up to $10 back if your bet doesn't win. And if you're new to FanDuel Sportsbook, sign up with the promo code Mickey, and you'll also get 30-1 enhanced odds on either team to win during the Sunday afternoon matchup between the Cardinals and the Seahawks. Win $150 on a $5 bet. Promo code Mickey. MICKEY, so they know I sent you. You got to be 21 or older, present in Tennessee. Refund issued as non-withdrawable site credit expires in 7 days. Max refund is $10. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Same game parlay available for multiple sports. In all states on the mobile web gambling problem, call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789.
Fans come up to me all the time when I'm in Nashville. They say, you guys have no respect for us. You guys don't care about us. You don't even consider us. And you look at the percentages there of us, picking Kansas City to win the AFC. I kind of feel that. I hear what they're saying. What does this team have to do for everyone to believe that they are the best team in the AFC? They are the only team that has beat 4 teams with winning records this season. They just got through this gauntlet. Okay, no Derrick Henry. They've been able to figure it out. I was just in Nashville talking to some people on the team, talking to some people connected to the organization, trying to get a sense. What's up with Derrick Henry? Is he coming back? There is optimism that he will be back early January, right? So just think about this.
Early January,
that is
a possibility.
Perfect timing for this team for the playoffs to begin. So do not count the Tennessee Titans out if you're not impressed with
that. Is sneaky big news. Early January, him coming back could make all the difference.
There's a feeling if all goes well, and they don't like to do timelines there in Nashville, but
got that vibranium.
You know Derrick Henry's going to do what he needs to do to get back out there.
So that's Diana Rossini on Get Up. The quote, there is optimism. Derrick Henry will be back in early January, as we were saying earlier on the show. So the season, because it's 17 games, goes another week into January this year. The Titans play Miami on the 2nd of January. They play the Texans on the 9th of January. So the playoffs would start the next week. Then if you get the bye, if you were the top seed in the AFC, somehow they could continue this run. They wouldn't have to play for 2 more weeks later into January. The King. We were joking about this in the commercial break, and Blaine, you said, well, I mean, if you're Schefter, or you or Lucas once said this, if you're Schefter, you could say, like I said, he wasn't going to play at all this regular season, but he could come back for the playoffs. Yeah. You could double down. You could back off on that.
Yeah, because he said he was what was his quote there, Lucas? Schefter?
The Derrick Henry quote from Schefter.
He's just said out for the season.
Yeah.
He's been consistent and out for the season. So I don't know if he's going to spin that into 2021 calendar year, regular season. I don't know. He's saying he's done.
Yeah. And it was interesting. She kind of threw in there at the end, the Titans don't like to throw out timelines. Right. Well, who gave you that information? The actual Titans. So they basically did give you a timeline because you wouldn't have suggested that. So, it's almost like, I don't want to offend you, but I'm going to say this. Well, yeah. So they actually gave him a timeline. But, it could happen or it couldn't.
Sure.
Here's my whole thing about this whole Derrick Henry, and I'm not out of wits like a lot of people, but at some point you're going to make a decision. Do we take the risk and we play him? He's healed. He's working. He's ready to rock and roll. I'm already taking my mind there, and I have to start settling down how I'm going to make this decision if I'm the head coach. If all things say go. All right, what's the worst thing that could happen? What's the worst thing that could happen?
Certainly break it again.
Right. That's the worst thing. Guess what? That's worth the risk in the coach's eye. Maybe not to Henry. Why? You got a whole 6 months of off season to let it heal.
Sure.
So it will become a point where if he feels good and he looks good and he's out there cutting, nothing happens. That doesn't mean it's going to work out in the game, but you say it's worth the risk because he's got all off season. Yep. And I'm sure Henry wants to play too.
Yeah.
He's a competitor. You don't get this good, be one of the best without being that.
And as you always tell me, the train doesn't stop rolling. They don't go, oh, Coach, I'm sorry you don't feel good. Hey, man, can you play? Can you go? You can go? Okay, go.
Yeah. And that means it's time for us to go.
Yes. That's absolutely it. Hey, Big Friday. You nailed that. All right. You hear the Eagles. That does mean it's time for us to fly 3HL coming up next on this Thursday.
Yep. Happy Thursday, Mickey.
Yes, sir.
And as always,
you know it.
Peace.